We thank God tonight. Mighty God, I welcome the presence of the living God tonight. I welcome our dear Prophetess Elisa, oh man of God, we welcome you tonight. Welcome, mighty God, our moderator, Minister Coralie. Welcome all leaders, welcome intercessors, welcome all members tonight. I welcome, mighty God, our Mount Zion family over there on YouTube, over there on Facebook, and wherever this broadcast will go tonight. I welcome you. I welcome our children tonight, mighty God. And tonight, our topic tonight is be careful how we become familiar with the things of God. And my text tonight is taken from 2 Samuel chapter 6. And I'll read a couple verses from there. Mighty God. So moving the ark to Jerusalem. 2 Samuel 6, verse 1 to 7. And it reads, it says, Then David gathered all the troops of Israel, 30,000 in all. He led them to Bela of Judah to bring back the ark of the covenant, which bears the name of the Lord of the heavens army, who is enthroned between the cherubim. The ark they placed the ark of God on a new cart and brought it from Abinadab's house. Right? And I want you to listen. They brought it from Abinadab's house, which was on the hill. Uzzah and Iowa, Abimadab's sons, were guarding the cart. So here the Bible said the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of God, was in Abimadab's house, and his two sons, they were the one that was guiding the ark, that carried the ark of God, right? So they were guiding the cart that was carrying the ark of God. Aaron walked in front of the ark. David and the people of Israel were celebrating before the Lord, singing and playing all kinds of musical instruments, lyres, harps, tambourines, and cymbals. Listen, but when they arrived at the threshing floor of Nacon, the oxen stumbled, and Uzziah reached out his hand, steadied the ark of God. The Bible then said, the Lord's anger arose against Uzziah, and God struck him dead because of this. So Uzziah died right there beside the ark of God. Right? So that's the story we know about them trying to move the ark of God in a particular way that they saw fit. Right? So just a backstory of how the ark of God ended up in this household that it was. The ark of God went on a battlefield with the Philistines. Because back then, the Israelites, they were in battle with the Philistines. Right? Follow me. And it went to Bethshemek in Kerry, which is in Abinadab's house, where it stayed safely until King David later attempted to bring it to Jerusalem. 1 Samuel 7 verse 1 read, So the men of Kiriath-Jearim came to get the ark of the Lord. They took it to the hillside home of Abinadab and ordained Eliza his son. So we know something about Abinadab. He had three sons, Uzzah, Aaron, and Eliza. Eliza was ordained to take care of the Ark of the Covenant. So they ordained him, they anointed him. He was appointed to do that. All right. The first point I want to make, the first error that Uzzah, the one that was struck down, made, the first error that they made, or Israel made, was trying to remove the ark, right? So Israel was being so familiar and in error with the things of God that they tried to remove the ark in a way that was not stipulated by God. And that's what we do when we become familiar with the things of God. We do it any and any how. We do it the way how we please. That was what Israel did. So the first error was removing the ark, right? And you see, God is very merciful, right? So you see, Israel, there was an error with the things of God, there was an error with God, but God was watching them. That's what God do to us. God is not the God that instantly he's just gonna strike us down like that. He watch us to see if we'll gather our senses and at least try and honor him, right? So the first error that Israel did was removing the ark, and God was there watching. Like many of us, we think we're in the right, but we're in the wrong, and God is watching, right? Because God is a God of order, saints of God. God is a God of order. If we understand the book of Genesis, the very first chapter, we'll understand that God did not do create it in the last day and then him go the first. Him go first day, second day, third day, fourth day. He continued. He's a God of order. But we, because we're in discipline and we're disorderly, we think that we can do the things of God anyhow. God is watching us. So I said again, the first error that Israel made was removing the ark, right? So even before Uzzah touched the ark, Israel was already in error. It was unfortunate that he touched it, right? But they were already in error. And let me show you why I say that. In 1 Chronicles 13, this is what 1 Chronicles 13 said. It said, David consulted with his official, including the generals and the captains of his army. So you hear who he consulted with? Not God. He consulted with his official, including his general and the captain of his army. Then they addressed the entire assembly of Israel as follows. If you approve and if it is the will of God, let us send message to all the Israelites throughout the land, including the priests and Levites in their towns and their pasture land. Let us invite them to come and join us. It is time to bring back the ark of God, for we have neglected it during the reign of Saul. David did not consult God. He consulted his officials and said, if it is the will of God, let us go move the ark. Why didn't David not consult God? That is even an error right there. We must always consult God first. The Bible said he consulted his officials and his general and his army and said, come, we could go move the ark. Right? Next, the ark was never supposed to be transported on a cart. God gave specific instruction in Numbers 4 verse 15 and Exodus 25 verse 14 to 15. The ark should be carried on poles by a Levite. Right? Numbers 4 verse 15 said, the camp will be ready to move when Aaron, we know Aaron was a Levite, and the sons have finished covering the sanctuary and all the sacred articles. The Kohathites will come and carry these things to the next destination. But they must not touch the sacred object or they will die. So these are the things that from the tabernacle that the Korite must carry. And there was a list of things. So listen how the ark of God should be carried. Exodus 25 verse 14 to 15 read. Insert the poles into rings at the side of the ark to carry it. These carrying the poles must stay inside the rings. Never remove them. So you see, God gave the children of Israel specification regarding the ark. But what they did was to copy the Philistine method of using a new cart to transport the ark. While this seemed practical and it may look good, but it was a God way. I'm speaking to us tonight. I said it seemed practical for them to carry it on a new cart because their friends, their enemy, the Philistine, did that. And it looked good to do that, but it wasn't God's way. So while the world is doing things, saints of God, the things of God, it is sacred. And as children of God, we must operate in that way. You see, because things was given in the Old Testament. And we said we're in the New Testament era. We have no respect for the things and the rules that God made. And this was what Israelites did. They had no respect and no reverence for the things and the rules, the specification that God made for them to carry the ark. So they built a cart and they said, let me carry it this way. Many of us as children of God, we're in this era because the world is doing something. We as Christians, we think that we should do it. The Philistine built a cart and they carried the ark. They even touched the ark and nothing happened to them. And then the children of God think that they should copy the world and bring that same thing into the kingdom of God and think God will be happy with it. Listen, God is not man that he should lie, and God is not a chaka God. He's a God that should be reverent. He should be feared, people of God. You see, because we are not seeing things happening like people just dropping dead. Listen, there's a proverb that says, fire there must still we think a cool breeze. Some of the things that is happening in the world, it is God showing the world that, listen, I am angry with how Christians are operating. Israelites was God's chosen nation. It was the Israelites that was dishonoring God. It wasn't the Philistine. It was the Israelite that should have known better. As Christians, we need to know better and do better. Why are we following the world? Them are do it, so we are going to do it to the devil is a liar. The devil is a liar. You see, looking good or sounding good doesn't mean that it pleases God. It may look good, it may sound good, but that doesn't mean that it pleases God. Right? So the second error they made that, listen, Elijah was the son that was ordained to watch over the ark, not Uzziah. The Bible said when the ark came to Abimelech's house in 1 Samuel 7 verse 1, Elijah was consecrated to be in charge of the ark. He was set apart for the holy duty. But later in 2 Samuel verse 6, when David tried to bring the ark to Jerusalem, it was Uzziah, another son of Abimelech, who put his hand on the ark. Uzziah was not ordained for that role. Just because the ark was in his home, didn't give him authority to touch or guide the ark. That was where Uzziah erred. You understand? He became familiar with the ark because what? It was in his father's household. Many of us, that's what we do. You understand? We'll come every Wednesday on church. We'll come every Sunday. And we'll come when church is happening. So you know what we do? We just treat these little, because it's online. We treat it anyhow. And we don't know God is watching us. Treat it like church. Come on. Because the ark was in his house, he became familiar with it. Right? He became familiar with it. And it was his familiarity that cost him his life. When things are sacred, when men and woman has been set apart for the glory of God, let us not become familiar. Familiar will cause us to die. We need to understand what has been set apart, what God has placed his hands on, and what God said is sacred. You see, it's only some indisciplined person that most person that you see with class of pastors and prophets and prophetess and all of that don't understand that they're in error. When you raise your voice in an unworthy way against saints of God, God people, listen, we are in error when we do it. We are in error. Leave them to God. Even if you know something that the man or woman has done, it is not our duty to curse who God has anointed. David knew that when he came upon Saul, he said, I cannot touch who God has anointed. It is we who think that we are them his size and we are companion and we have the same grace and all upon our life. So we can speak to sacred people anyhow. We need to stop. When they are wrong, say, God, you see what your servant do. And you leave it right there. Because God is not blind. Neither is he deaf and he's not partial. If they are wrong, they will get it from their father. Right? Don't do that. Uzziah, he became familiar because it was in his household. So he become familiar. Oh, me can't touch it because I'm used to it. You see this thing used to? No, let's not do that, saints of God. The third error was familiarity breed contempt. As I said before, Uzziah grew up around the ark. It became a common thing in his eyes. No more sacred. It became common in his eyes because he was in the comfort of his house for years. What was holy and untouchable started to feel ordinary for Uzziah. If it was a feeling that we would grab it when it a turn over, if him did see it as sacred and no say my God dead when him touch it, he would do it. That's why he dared to steady the ark when the oxen stumbled, because what felt like helpful action was actually a disobedience to God's order. And that happened when we get too familiar with the things of God. We risk losing reverence for His holiness. When we get familiar with the things of God, we have no reverence for it anymore. We go to church and behave anyhow. We dress anyhow, come at church. No. People of God, let us get it right. Yes, the fourth error that Israel made, their indiscipline leads to judgment. Because the people did not respect God's instruction, tragedy followed. Uzziah's death was a reminder that disobedience, no matter how small, has a consequence. Come on. God isn't impressed by human creativity when it becomes to His holiness. He demands obedience. Israel learned that they could treat God present casually. They learned that in a hard way. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 8 said, it said David was angry because the Lord's anger had burst out against Uzziah. He named the place Peris Uzzah, which means to burst out against Uzziah, as it is still called today. In 2 Samuel 68, David was upset because Uzziah's death interrupted what seemed to be like a joyful and noble mission, bringing back the ark to Jerusalem. But the truth is, David himself had overlooked God's instruction. David the king overlooked God's instruction. The ark was never meant to be transported on an ark. God had commanded that it be carried on the shoulder of Levites with poles. David's anger reveals something we often wrestle with today. We can be wrong and very strong. Our sister Dia favorite phrase that wrong and very strong about it. So David was wrong, but he was very strong about his error. He was angry with God. So just because we're sincere doesn't mean that we are correct. David's sincerity in wanting the ark in Jerusalem didn't excuse his disobedience. It did not excuse his disobedience. God doesn't adjust His standard to our emotions. God does not adjust His standard to our emotions. So David was sincere. Uzziah was sincere in his familiar action. But God don't excuse that. It is not excuse. He don't minimize or normalize His standard. God have a standard that we must obey. David anger didn't change God holiness. God never cared if David was angry, yes or no. What mattered was God's order, not David's feelings. Familiarity breed carelessness. Uzziah grew up around the ark and became casual with what was holy. David in turn became casual with God's command. Let us be warned, mighty God, Mount Zion tonight. Sometimes we get upset at the consequences when deep down the problem is that we did not follow God's instruction. I will become angry when it don't work out. Like David, we might be feeling angry with God when things don't go our way. But the truth is we need to check if we are in a line with His word in the first place. You see, after all that tragedy, David finally got it right. 2 Samuel 6 verse 9 read, David was now afraid of the Lord, and he asked, how can I ever bring the ark of the Lord back into care? David was now what? Afraid. He now feared God. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. First, David never had no fear. He just wanted to bring the ark. But now he was afraid. Mighty God, this is what we need to do. We need to always fear God. You see, if we develop a mindset and a character of fearing God, many of the things that we do to disappoint and dishonor God, we would do it. If we begin to fear the anger of God, many of the things that we do, we would do it. Because we would understand that, listen, God, something will happen if we do this. Proverbs 9 verse 10 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the holy is understanding. After Uzziah's death, David's anger turned into fear of the Lord. He realized the ark wasn't just a religious symbol, it represented the holy presence of God and could not be handled carelessly. That fear wasn't terror, but it was reverence. It was a kind of holy respect that leads to wisdom. And this is what God needs from us tonight. If you don't remember anything else, remember this, people of God. We must have that level of respect for God that will lead to wisdom. We operate properly. At first, David acted out of excitement and human enthusiasm, but now his questions shows humility. How can I ever bring the ark of the Lord back into my care? He became humble. He never just emotional and one character. See, sometimes our emotion, it will mess we up. It will mess us up. That was what happened to David. He becomes so excited and his emotion gets so heightened that he dishonored God because he was emotional. Mighty God. This is the turning point. Wisdom begins when we stop treating God casually and start honoring his holiness. The fear of the Lord redirects us from doing things our way to seeking God's way. So let us look at the second moving. So that was the first moving of the ark from Jerusalem. Let us look now at the second movement. So First Chronicles 20 to 25 reads, 25 to 28 reads. It said, then David and the elders of Israel and the general of the army went to the house of Obed-Edom to bring the ark of the Lord's covenant up to Jerusalem with a great celebration. And because God clearly helping the Levites, he was helping now who? The Levites. As they carried the ark of the covenant, they sacrificed 7 bulls and 7 rams. Who was helping them? God. God was clearly helping them, and they offer a sacrifice unto him. David was dressed in the robe of fine linen, and so were all the Levites who work. Everybody was in their right position now. When as Christians we fail to be in our right position, persons will take our up position and there be in problem. The Levites were now in their right position. Initially, it was the Levites, it was Uzziah and his brothers. But now the Levites, they were in the right place. You understand? The ark and also the singers, the Kenna, the choir leader. David was also wearing his priestly garment. David now was properly ordained. The Israelites was in their position and now they were in the order of Christ. When we step out of our position and become disorderly, we're getting problem with God, saints of God. And that was what the Israelites did. They were not in order. They was not clothed properly. They were just doing things any and any. Oh, mighty God, we need to hold our position. All the position that God give to you. Him call you to be evangelist, evangelize. Him call you to be singer, sing. Him call you to be listen, door watcher, watch the door. Him call you for clean the church, clean the church. Keep your position. Mighty God. Everybody is not called to do the same thing. Everybody want to be here. Nobody want to be down there. Mighty God. And that will get us in error. It says, so all the Israelites brought up the ark of the covenant with a shout of joy, the blowing of rams and trumpets, and the crushing of cymbal and loud playing on harps. People of God, you see, when we do things correctly, the way in fearing God, he will help us. Israel finally got it right. Levites were now in their true and correct place. David and Israel corrected their mistake. Tonight, I hope that we'll correct our mistake. The Levites are now in their rightful place, carrying the ark. But my question, where was the Levites first? Mighty God, this is how some of us, we run, leave the post. We run, left our position. God call us as intercessors. And when him look at the door, we're not there. The enemy are creeping upon the church because the intercessors not there. God call us as singers. When you look, singer not up there and sing. Them are the other things. Come on. Let us stay in our rightful position. Sacrifices were made in reverence and thanksgiving. Worship was expressed with singing, an instrument of great joy. You see, people of God, when we follow his order, his help is evident. Because verse 26 says, because God was clearly helping the Levites. That's a different way when we do things. We invite his blessing. Invite God in everything that you're doing, saints of God. We need to stop leaving God out of it. David and the Israelites made that error. They left God out of it totally. David questioned his captains and his high men, and they went. But next time he said, let me ask God, how am I going to get this right here, sir? And God help. They receive help from the Lord. Put God first in it. Mighty God. So let us just recap what happened. So the first attempt was the wrong way. The ark was placed on a new cart. Mighty God. They were imitating the Philistine method. The second attempt, that was the right way. The ark was carried by the Levites on poles as commanded by God. The first attempt, Uzziah, though not ordained, got the cart and touched the ark when the oxen stumbled. The second attempt, which is the right way, the Levites ordained by God carried the ark and God helped them. The first way, it wrong again. The result is Uzziah died because of irreverence, and David became angry and afraid. The second attempt, the result, sacrifice, worship, and joy filled the procession. The first attempt, the atmosphere was shifted from celebration to fear and confusion. In the second attempt, the atmosphere was marked with unity, order, and God's blessing. We need to follow the order of Christ. When we follow Christ, unity is there, and his blessing is sure, and his help is sure. Mighty God. Yes, sincerity is not enough. We must follow God's instruction, obedience, and invite God present and help. People of God, let us not, mighty God, let us be careful how we become familiar with the things of God. Let us be very careful how we become familiar with the things of God. Be careful how we become familiar with persons who God have placed in position. You see, God has placed Prophetess Alicia in position of being his mouthpiece, right? And when you're close to her, especially myself, I have to be very careful, right? And I remember I went to God. When I saw God was using her, I said, God, I cannot call your woman servant by the name I used to call her. So I have to be training myself now, because after years of calling her by her name, I have to train myself now to call her Prophetess Alicia. And that's what me and my household, I've been practicing that, because I'm showing reverence to her. Right? I'm showing reverence to God and honoring the oil upon her life, not becoming familiar. Right? Not because when we become familiar, God is watching and he's seeing. I remember I went to God and I said, God, you have to help me, because I don't want to become familiar with your woman servant. So help me. And I remember the first thing the Holy Spirit gave me was the name. He said, address her by the name that I have ordained her to be. And that's what I start calling her. Yeah, we are in the household and I will call her prophetess. I'm trying very hard. Sometimes I might slip and call her by her right name, and I catch back myself and I call her prophetess. Right? We have to practice these things. Practice it. Don't become familiar with the things of God. Don't become familiar when you come here on a Wednesday and on a Thursday. You come or we're at church. So you don't come in here anyhow. What if one day, we're on church, right? You come in here anyway, you know, fix your ear, you lie down on your bed, you probably have one big plate of food to eat, all of these things. And that's the day, right? The woman servant or anybody who's ministering, the Lord give a word, but the word is turn your camera on instantly. What will some of us do? Some of us won't be able, we'll miss the blessing. We're going to say, give me a second. And that second is, you will miss the blessing. Because we don't practice and understand that we are coming to church. We may be behind cameras, mighty God, but we are coming to church. It is a church, saints of God. It may be online, but it's a church. I'm speaking to someone tonight. Do not become familiar with the things of God. Don't come and sit in the presence of God anyhow. It is dishonoring, right? God was watching the Israelites from the day it came to whosoever mind build a cart to move the ark. God was like, okay, let me see what they're doing now. From the day the thought came to their mind, God was watching them. And God watched them finish building the cart, lift it up, lift up the ark, put it on the cart. You realize when they put, because they must have put the ark from where it was on the cart, nobody died. And when Uzziah was sleeping and he put his hand on it, he died. Because God was like, I've had enough. We need to be careful. And man, oh God, watching us. And he's saying, I've had enough of your disobedient and your disrespectful behavior. And then he treats us like Uzziah was treated. Let us stop treating the things of God with familiarity. People of God with familiarity. Speak to people with respect. Sister, brothers, speak with people with respect. Yes. Don't dishonor the grace, the oil that God has poured upon people's life. Don't do that. Yes, we're all human beings. Yes. And yes, we all have the same, we all have blood running through our vein. But the difference is in the realm of the spirit. And that's what we need to understand. The difference is in the realm of the spirit. There are some persons that God has anointed differently. And we know that based on the work that they have been assigned to. Not everybody's assigned to do the same thing. Not everybody's called to do the same thing. And some person calling require a different level of anointing. When we dishonor people, we dishonor the oil upon their life. When we dishonor people calling, God has called them a particular way. And they say that God is using the person. We're not dishonoring the person. We're dishonoring the oil of God, the grace of God that God has placed upon this person. And we have to be careful. We have to be careful. Right? I know that God anger, they said it's lasts for a while. But what happened when his anger has not been lifted from out of our life? How do we go forward? What do we do when God is angry with us? That places us in a horrible position when God is angry, and sometimes he's angry and we don't even know. God is angry with us, and many of us we are praying, Satan, I bind you, Satan. And Satan stand up and watch. Why you're binding me? I have nothing to do with what you're going through. Your God is angry with you because we become familiar with the things of God.